So we were out here actually doing some shopping to create my new studio setup. But as we were in the street here, around here, there was this really old pigeon who seemed really weak, and they almost got ran over by cars over there. So we managed to rescue them, and now we're inside the store. She's right here. Look at this love. And we're right now waiting for an Uber to go drop her off at a center that can take care of her, or him, not sure, but take care of them. So I thought I was gonna have a heart attack when we saw them almost get run over by a car. That was crazy.
Let me switch my ear thing.
All right, while you do that, what we're gonna do right now is we're actually gonna tell you the story of exactly what happened.
Stop.
And then we're gonna go into some lessons of what we learned through this experience. We actually shot this once at the bus stop, waiting for the bus, but the sound was really bad. There was too much wind, so we're gonna shoot this again just for you. And it's gonna be amazing. So tell us, what is the story? What exactly happened?
So we were walking in Paris and we were going to grab something to make his set, and we came across this pigeon that looked like they were limping a little bit, and they just didn't look like they were well, and we were a little bit concerned about them. There was an employee outside of a shop that we were walking past that was on her break, and she seemed to be watching the pigeon, and she was just like, she doesn't look like she's doing well.
Yeah. And so we walked, we looked at her and we were like, oh, poor pigeon, like she's maybe not doing too well, whatever. And we didn't really do anything about it at the time, to be honest with you. And we just walked into the store. This store was this conscious living, low-waste vibes kind of store. And, we're all into that. So we're like, let's check it out. Like, let's see what they have. So we walked in, we looked at some products. And a couple minutes later, we walked back out. And that's when we saw the pigeon again. Mm-hmm. And this time, instead of just being, by the wall, by the store, this pigeon was walking on the streets towards the road. And the first thing I noticed was that as they were walking, they were not able to avoid humans very well. And these people were walking by and almost running over this poor pigeon, not even noticing, which is just unbelievable to me. But they were just walking by, like almost trampling her. And that's when I personally first started getting really worried. Now, after that, the pigeon went further and went onto the actual road where there were cars going by. And just the light was red. So at the time, the cars were stopped, but the pigeon just went under this car that was waiting for the light to turn green.
Before that happened, we should have grabbed her or grabbed them, because there was no way that she was doing well, and it was even a worse situation for her to be in the road.
Yeah, because what ended up happening was that this pigeon almost got run over right in front of us. Like, this was no joke. What happened was that this pigeon went under the car, the light turned green, the first car left, and then this second car drove over this pigeon, just drove over them. And we saw that, and we were like, okay, we want you to stand here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this second car ran over this pigeon and didn't injure her or anything, but the car was above this pigeon. Okay, I said it like 10 times, but I mean, you gotta picture yourself just witnessing this, right? It's unbelievable. And then 2 seconds after that, this gust of wind came by and blew this poor pigeon onto the next lane. And that's when, for me, I was really like, this pigeon is not going to make it. Like, either they can't fly or something is wrong, but they can't even withstand wind, and they're in the middle of the road where cars are driving by.
And the lady at the shop was with us the whole time. She was traumatized the whole time as well. I mean, we when she got blown into the road, the oncoming traffic started coming towards her, and all of a sudden this car came, and the wheel was, I kid you not, this close to hitting her. It was so close, and at that point, I threw up my hands, and we ran in front of the car. We're like, stop! Like, I thought she was gonna die, honestly.
Yeah. So we stopped the car.
Screaming.
We stopped the car. You got to do what you got to do, because at first, I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, what happened was that I was like, maybe we should go onto the road to like get this animal, but I didn't want to stop the traffic. Right? I was scared, like I felt insecure to stop the traffic. And then when I saw the gust of wind, I was like, this is over. Like we got to go here. Like it doesn't matter. Like we can stop the traffic. Like it's fine. But the lesson that I learned from that is, when you see, like when something is going to go wrong, like just intervene. Like don't worry about your image. Don't worry about pissing people off. Like that it doesn't matter. Okay, life is at stake here.
And it's not that these people in the cars were bad people. They literally just didn't see her. She was so low to the ground. There was no way that they could have spotted her.
Yeah. So we stopped the car. I picked up the pigeon. We brought them back to the sidewalk, and that's when we started figuring things out. Because
she was freaking out a little bit.
If you are in a situation where you're rescuing animals, maybe you don't know what you're doing. So me and Rain, we are not experts animal rescuers by any stretch of the imagination. We've just been in this situation a few times, because if you just walk around this world and you care about animals, right, you are going to see animals who are injured. You are going to see animals who are in need. It's just going to happen. You're going to see it everywhere, right? And if you don't, then start looking out for that, because they're there. There's so many animals who are, they're just in ugly situations because of things that humans have created, right? That's just the way it is. So you're gonna notice that. And so when you're in that situation, you may not know exactly what to do. And we find ourselves in this situation every single time. We've rescued multiple animals over the past, couple years. And every single time, I never knew exactly what to do. I'm kind of learning now a little bit, but it's just not my expertise. So I don't know. And so all I know what to do is I just know to be resourceful and think to myself, okay, what is the best thing to do for this animal? And how can I be resourceful to make that happen? This is the moment where you just become creative, you just be resourceful, and instead of thinking about the problem, you think about solutions. You intently focus on solutions, and you do whatever it takes to find solutions to do what's best for the animal. Right, so the first thing that we asked if they had any boxes at the shop, because what I learned, the first thing you want to do is make sure that the animal's in a safe space, that they're going to be okay for now while you figure out what you're going to do with them. So we asked for a box. We put down this canvas bag on the box from Toronto Pig Save that said, "Save animals, go vegan."
Really
and so we put it down. We put the pigeon there so that they were comfortable. We brought the pigeon inside the store where it was warm, and then we started giving them water. They even had like some bird feed at the store, so we put that down so that they could eat if they wanted to. And that's when I started making phone calls. This is what I do every single time, because I personally don't know what to do. So I just call people who might know what to do. And the two key things here that I want to talk about is that first, the reason I know who to call is because I'm embedded in the community. Right? As an animal rights activist, I attend events, I go to sanctuaries, I know people, I'm friends with people, and so when I'm in this kind of situation, I have just a list of people that I can call.
There's multiple people that came to mind that are our friends that are here that we thought, okay, they probably know, other people in the community at least that have some leads on, some rescues that we possibly could take her to, because we knew that a lot of the places around here do not take pigeons because they're considered pests here, which it's a very speciesist way of looking at things, but that's just how it is in a lot of places when it comes to many different species of birds.
Mm-hmm. So, if you right now, you're not in the community, but you want to help animals, then that might be a good thing to do so that you have people to call. But if this is not your situation, maybe you don't know anyone personally who might be able to help, then that's when you do some research, find wildlife rescue centers, sanctuaries, whatever it is. And then when you call them, the way that you approach them is you don't say, "Hey, I have this animal, can you help them?" What you say, because you gotta understand their situation, right? You always gotta be empathetic to where other people are at.
They get calls every single day.
They get calls every single day about all these situations, and people just expect them to help these animals just because they are a certain type of organization, right? And you gotta understand that a lot of these places are at capacity. They're struggling to help all the animals that they're helping.
Sanctuaries, rescue centers, anyone that regularly takes in rescued animals, sometimes they have a really hard time.
Yeah, because the people there just have such big hearts and they just want to help animals, and then everyone just pushes these animals onto them, and it's just not a good situation. Like for me, working at Ratty Girl Sanctuary, I saw that Renee, the founder, executive director, gets calls almost daily about animals that people just want to push onto her. Kindred Spirits Care Farm, this other sanctuary that we go to in Los Angeles, people have dumped animals over the fence. Okay, just dump them over the fence. And what's Karen gonna do? She's gonna take care of the animals. Like how could you not take care of them? right? But it's a completely unfair situation to put those places in, because what ends up happening is that they don't have the resources necessary to help these animals, and then the animals that they're caring for end up suffering as a result of that. Right? So it just doesn't help the animals to approach them like that. Instead, what I found works, what I found to be effective, is approaching them from a space where you say, hey, we're in this situation. We know that, you're very adept at helping animals. So what do you think we can do to help this animal? In your opinion, what is your best advice that you could give us so that we can do what's best for the animal? So you ask them for advice of what they think you can do.
And in that manner of asking, we're assuming full responsibility for this animal, because we are the one that found this being that is now in our care. So it's really important to assume, like, this animal is in my care, so now I get to do the work here. I get to make sure that this animal is safe because I found this animal. So that's the space I think is the most helpful when, calling places, is like, we can't just be like, hey, you need to do something about this.
Like, you got to be willing to bring the animal to places. You got to be willing to pay vet bills if it comes to it. Be resourceful. And if you can't afford it, just find a way to fundraise. It's not that hard. You just got to be resourceful. A life is at stake here. Okay, so it's you just fight for their life the way that you want someone to fight for your life. It's really not that complicated.
Yeah.
And what you got to understand is that even before we found the place that we eventually brought her at, because, what we started doing, basically, to get back to the story, is that we started calling people, we started calling our friends, and we started asking them, do you know anyone who could help? What do you think we could do? What is your advice, et cetera, et cetera. And while we were doing that, the person at the shop actually called a nearby vet, because we were like, maybe we should take this animal to the vet. And then what we found out is that this vet would not take in this animal. And what they would do if we brought in a pigeon is that they would just put down the pigeon. Even though they could live a very healthy life, a very happy life, they're just going to put them down. Why? Because pigeons and parrots are considered pests. Right? This is speciesism in action. This is what our world is like.
Not just in Paris. I mean, it's in a lot of major cities. They're considered pests.
So a few weeks ago, we were in Echo Park in Los Angeles, and there was this duck that got attacked by a husky. Right? Someone was walking their dog, and their dog attacked a duck. And what was striking is that, after the dog attacked the duck, I mean, it was a violent attack. You didn't see, but I saw it. It was a violent attack. And again,
I saw the aftermath.
I didn't step in as fast as I should have, but that's besides the point. And I'll probably tell you this story at some point. I would love to share it with you. Let me know if you want to hear it. But the point is that after this person's dog, not in a possessive way, but you get the point. Okay, so after this dog attacked this duck, this human just walked away and didn't do anything to help this duck, which is just so unbelievable that you cannot even take responsibility for clear harm that you caused this animal. This duck could not stand, okay, after this dog attacked her.
She was bleeding.
And as I heard from my friend who runs a sanctuary, that's what they call a sitting duck. And when a duck can't get up, some predator is going to get them. Okay, they're not in a good situation. They can't survive. Okay, so this person just left this duck, and this is the society we live in, where people see, certain animals, if you see an injured dog, then maybe a few people will stop. And even then, I bet a lot of people just let them be, right? But some people will stop to help them. But when it starts being other animals, like ducks, like pigeons, I don't know what would happen if you found a rat, right? Most people, pedestrians that go by, are not gonna go the extra mile to do something about it. And then even places that are supposed to care for animals, like vets, like rescue centers, like shelters, they will probably, a lot of them are not gonna take in these animals.
Euthanize them.
Or they're gonna euthanize them.
If they do take them in.
Right? Because they're pests, because just everyone's speciesist. I mean, it's a terrible world for animals. And so for you, as someone who's watching this, I assume that you care about animals, and you probably defend them to some capacity. And that being the case, if you find yourself in a situation where you find an animal, you gotta realize that you are one of the few people that would even consider helping the animal and doing whatever it takes to do what's best for them. So that being the case, if you're in that situation, then please do whatever it takes to help an animal, whatever species they are, because it doesn't matter what society we live in. Okay, an injured duck or an injured rat or an injured pigeon, we should help them as much as we should help an injured dog in the street or an injured cat. We just gotta help them because we created this situation, all right? We, humans, have built the city. It's a dangerous environment for them. And so I think that the least we can do if we find them in a situation.
The very least that we can do for them is just make sure that they're safe. And
Exactly.
make sure that their life is going to be okay.
Yeah, and you can go a little out of your way for that. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. But you do what you got to do. All right, like I said, it's not very complicated. If you put yourself in the animal's position, it's really not complicated. You just
Yeah.
do what you would want someone to do for you, and that's it. So, anyways, so we start calling people, and finally, we got the contact of this wild bird rehabilitation center near Paris. And we called them, and they're incredible. I think I'm gonna link their website here because they're so incredible. They do amazing work.
They've been helping birds since 1988.
Yeah, they've been helping birds since 1988. They rehabilitate like 5,000 birds a year. They're open 7 days a week from 9 to 9. I mean, this is incredible. It's incredible work. We called them, and we told them about our situation. They said, if you bring the bird in, we can take care of them. And so that's basically what we did. The last lesson I kind of learned through this is that, I think that one of the things that we should learn moving forward is thinking about what are some questions that we're going to ask these places when we get their contact information to make sure that, if we bring the animal there, they're going to be in good hands. Because although anyone can say anything on the phone, and sometimes, you get emotional in these situations, you're like, oh, finally someone's going to help.
Yeah.
Well, it's still up to you to follow through and make sure that animal's going to be safe, right? So someone might say over the phone that they're going to take care of this animal. Meanwhile, you get there, you drop the animal off, and then you never hear from them again, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So I think one thing we should have is a list of questions that we can ask these places to vet them. We get them from people that we trust, so that's a plus. But, anyways, so...
I think one of the main questions is, are you going to euthanize this animal if I bring them in? That's one of the most obvious ones. I mean, obviously, if the animal is in pain and it's in their best interest to do so, you can kind of distinguish whether they're, legit or not when it comes to that.
Yeah, so we dropped off this animal, we dropped off this pigeon at the place. We made sure to take an Uber to the place instead of taking the train and the bus and walking, because we just wanted to make sure that it was safe and it was as least stressful as possible for this animal. And so that's what we did. We dropped them off and we asked them questions. And even when we got there, and this is what we're talking about when we say take responsibility. I asked the person, okay, like, what are you going to do? Like, what's going to happen to this animal? I want to know. I want to make sure that they're okay. And then I want to ask, okay, how can we help? Can I make a donation? Can I volunteer here? What can I do to help you? Because, like I said...
Still assuming responsibility for, this life.
Because these places, like I said, they're at capacity, they're overworked. They don't have enough resources to help all the animals that they want to help. So, help them out, like, however you can. And we dropped them off, and we left with a very good feeling. It really felt like this place was really going to take care of them. They seemed really legit. We heard the other birds. It was dark, so we couldn't see the other birds. We heard all the other birds who were there, and it really seemed like a wonderful place with people who care a lot about animals.
A little shelter for them and everything.
And what's going to happen, since I know you're going to want to know, is that this bird ended up being a baby, so 2 to 3 weeks old. That probably fell out of a nest. They couldn't fend for themselves. Who was very skinny, underfed. And so they're gonna give them some water, some food, make sure that they're okay, and rehabilitate them. And once they're strong enough, they're gonna just release them back in the wild, which is
so
wonderful.
Happy, so awesome.
So that's the end of that story. All right, so now we're gonna shoot into the portion of the video that we shot in the bus on the way back, where we talk about some lessons that we've learned. But before we go into that, I realized that there's one key lesson that I left out, and that's maybe the most important lesson that I learned through this entire thing. And that's when I asked the lady at the rehabilitation center, I was like, how do we know when a bird is in trouble? And what she told us was that if you approach a bird and they don't fly away, something's wrong. So I remembered that because I didn't know that before. Right? And if I knew that, I would have known straight away when we saw the bird for the first time that something was wrong, because we approached them. We went really close to them. And even when they were trying to, go across the street and people were walking by, that bird didn't fly away. So we should have known right there and then that something is wrong. So next time you see a wild bird, this was to pigeons, but I think for most wild birds that applies, if you walk by them and they don't fly away, then something's wrong.
Or run away.
What are some things that you have learned from this experience?
Well, I've learned that, kind of I was watching the lady, how she was holding the pigeon. She kind of had her wings very close to her body, kind of similar to how we hold chickens, except for since the bird's body is so small, she kind of had her 2 fingers here like stabilizing on her back, and I was observing how she was handling this bird. We also learned that this bird was a baby, and I assumed that when I see pigeons on the street that are a little bit fluffy, like that have like really soft looking feathers that look kind of look like they're messed up, like I assumed that they have like a disease or something, or there's something wrong with them, but it turns out they're actually juvenile.
Yeah.
So
I think the lesson that I learned from that is that we shouldn't assume things that we don't know about animals.
Yeah.
I assumed this pigeon was old.
Yeah,
Because they kind of look crippled and just like frail, and I thought like, okay, maybe this pigeon is old, but we got to the place and the lady was like, oh, this pigeon's a baby. They're barely like 3 weeks old, and they can't fly yet, and
she
they probably
said she most likely fell out of the nest.
yeah, and those are things that we just couldn't have known. So what I learned from that is just not assume, because I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
Like I like to defend animals, but there are a lot of things about animals that I don't know. There's some things I know, a lot of things I don't know. So
We have a
I don't
lot to learn.
We have a lot to learn, and I don't want to assume that we know things. I know, especially if you see animals, like that's the thing, because we assume that there was one thing wrong with her. Like maybe I thought like, oh, maybe they're old, maybe they're injured, maybe they're sick, but actually they were just a baby. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't assume that we know what the problem is when we have no expertise on the topic at all. So that's definitely one thing I learned. Another thing that I learned is, I already said this, but it's just being resourceful and just always thinking about keeping the animal's best interest in mind and thinking, what can we do to help this animal? I think we were really lucky that when we stopped, when we got this animal, we were near a kind of like conscious living shop. The staff at the shop were extremely helpful. They're awesome, and they really wanted to help this animal as well. But that's not always going to be the case. And what I realized after the fact is, a lesson I learned from reading the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. In that book, he talks about how the concept of social proof, and that's basically the concept that if a lot of people do something, that most people are likely to do that just because a lot of people are also doing it. So how that translates into this type of situation is that apparently they've done studies if you collapse in the street and you start having a heart attack, if people just walk by and don't do anything, most other people that walk by are also not going to do anything. So if you're in a situation like that, the lesson from the book is that he says, point people out and tell them what to do. Say, hey, you, call 911. You do this. Can you do this? Can you do that? And just point people out and tell them what to do, because otherwise people are just not going to take initiative. In this case, even though people were taking initiative, but I still had to be like, hey, do you have a box? Let's do this, let's find this.
Yeah.
And it was just very you have to take responsibility and you have to take initiative in the moment, because you got to realize that, leaders don't ask for permission. And that being the case, if you're in a situation where you're the one rescuing an animal, you take full responsibility, you do whatever it takes, and you just I don't know, that's it, you just take responsibility. And if I wasn't in that situation, it would have been a very similar thing. Whoever's around, even if they're not super down to help the animal straight away, we still gotta enlist people and enroll people in the
And
idea of helping this animal.
A lot of the times they are. A lot of the times there are people that are gathered around that are willing to help, because people do care about animals. They really do. I mean, they'll walk by and be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It's just that they don't necessarily know what to do in that situation. And so sometimes you just have to take initiative, because nothing's going to get done for that animal if we don't
Right.
just do it,
Right. And to the point about keeping the animal's best interest in mind, you gotta understand that as someone who's watching this video right now, who's watching this channel, most likely you already know us and what we do. Well, you gotta realize that not many people are gonna care as much about the animal's best interest as you are. When we were rescuing the duck in Echo Park, there was another couple that came by who was like, oh, you should contact animal control or whatever. We just knew that animal control is gonna put this animal down. They don't have the animal's best interest in mind. Well, I'm sure they do help animals, but the point is, in that situation, they're just looking to find a quick fix, the solution, and basically pass the responsibility on. That's what a lot of people are looking to do. They're just looking to be like, well, we have this animal. I feel kind of bad that this animal is injured in front of me, so let me pass this on to someone, and I'm just gonna forget about it.
So they could just wash their hands of it.
And
not,
we can't do that, because that's not in the animal's best interest. We got to follow through and so really think, what is the best thing that we can do for this animal? Even as we want to drop off this pigeon, we asked her a bunch of questions. I asked them, you know, what is going to happen to this pigeon? And then even beyond that, I asked them, like, can I make a donation? Can we volunteer? How can we help? That's the mind you want to do. You don't want to just like let the animal go. Be like, you know what, you're an organization that takes care of wild animals.
Oh, we trust
so
you.
you know, we
Like,
trust you.
that's it.
Just do your thing.
Yeah.
Be like, how can we help? Because ultimately, you got to understand that there's so many animals who are in need in this world that if you don't take responsibility for them, then it's very difficult for other people to do so. Like even if they do, like you just wanna stick in there and you just want to be there for them. That's the least that you can do. Right? That's the least that you can do. That's what one of the things that one of the girls at the store, she was like, man, it's so nice that we're doing this. And I was like, this is the least that we can do for them. Like, what are we gonna do? Just leave them? Like, we built this city. Like, humans built this dangerous environment for them.
Yeah.
And now we're just gonna let them die in this environment
Yeah.
because of something that we've created. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we should take responsibility and help them out however we can. So anyways, I think that's about it for me. Is there any last thoughts you wanna leave our viewers with?
I mean, there was one thing. I really think it was, if there is like multiple people in the situation where there is an animal in need, I think it really is important for one person to just stay with the animal and just really like, you know, make sure they're calm, make sure they're comfortable while another person is maybe calling and trying to find a place. Because I mean, obviously if you're by yourself, it could be a little bit of a different situation, but you know, in this situation, Ryuji was making phone calls while I was making sure that the pigeon had water. I was making sure that she wasn't like flapping around, like that there was, you know, a little bag. I had like a little bag a canvas bag that I put underneath her so she was comfortable. And I think that also goes in alignment of, you know, making sure that the animal's best interest is in place, because you know, she would be a lot more stressed out, I think, if she was uncomfortable, or if she was, you know, there was loud noises around or anything like that. I think it's really good if we can, just to make the animal as comfortable as possible in the situation, because they're really stressed out already, and adding to their stress is, you know, that's not going to be good for them. Also, eliminating, you know, like we took an Uber to the place because we figured, you know, the train or the bus is going to take longer. She's going to be uncomfortable and stressed out longer in that situation. So it's better to just really think, like, if you were this animal, what would be the least stressful for you?
You know, like less trips, and if things get emotional, don't fight in front of the animals, because they don't need to witness that. So But so thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful and inspiring. A little bit of a different format here. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And you know, we're I wouldn't say like super often, but we do run into situations like this. I do want to tell you the story from Echo Park in full at some point. But I mean, let me know if this actually brings you value, because, you know, we can definitely talk about these situations when they happen and kind of like key you in. So thank you again for watching. Have an incredible rest of your day. You're awesome. Love you. Keep defending animals, and we'll see you next time. Peace.